hour with this story. Eskom has lost its court application to be granted higher tariff increases for the next 2 years. National Energy Regulator NERSA had awarded Eskom increases of 8.1% in the current financial year and 5.2% for the next one. In response, Eskom asked the High Court in Pretoria to allow increases of 16.6% this April and 16.7% next year. Eskom argued that without these tariffs, it and the economy will suffer catastrophic harm. Rohiwa Madzena from our money desk will have all the details later in this bulletin. Well, at the same time, Eskom has taken the foot off the pedal slightly on load shedding. It's eased from stage 2 to stage 1 since 9 o'clock this morning. Eskom says emergency reserves have adequately recovered, but the utility is urging South Africans to continue using electricity sparingly. Any additional shifts in demand may force a change in the load shedding stage. You can check your load shedding schedules on eskom.co.za or on the My Eskom app. The Labour Federation Cosatuwants workers' pension funds to bail out Eskom. It's suggested the funds be converted into shares to provide capital for the embattled power utility. But some experts say this is a bad idea and will only exacerbate the economic crisis. So let me take you live now to ENCA's Ronald Masinda, who attended a media briefing by Eskom, and now to unpack all of that for us. So there's been about a week since they first toyed around or mooted this idea. Ronald, what has Cosatu been telling us further about this plan to use workers' pension money to essentially pay off a portion of Eskom's debt?
Yes, a very good afternoon to you, Tulas. Yes, we did attend that gathering that was hosted by 8 provincial public sector unions, and of course 7 of which were in support of Cosatu's rescue plans to save Eskom. Now, for more details, I am joined by Cosatu's Tony Ehrenreich. Tony, you were at that gathering, and I'm sure you've been in talks with government. Has government endorsed this idea?
Well, government endorses the idea about the rescue plan for Eskom. The unions endorse, the large part of the unions, the overwhelming majority endorse the plan. A big section of business endorses the plan. So we believe we have consensus. There are some who don't agree with the plan, and while we hope to get them on board, we can't let them sabotage the program that's needed in Eskom and the progress that's needed in the South African economy.
I want to get into that next point. Who is not endorsing this, and what are the reasons behind it?
Well, there's a section of business that has not endorsed it, and they're the same people who made money out of the huge losses that took place in the 2008 financial crisis. They're the same guys who lost 200 billion rand in Steinhoff and many other companies. So you got the crooks in the financial services sector in South Africa wanting to deny South Africa the rights to 5 or 10% of savings, retirement savings, to address the economic crisis in the country. And we're saying that that kind of short-sightedness that really excludes the majority of South Africans has no more place. But we also know there's a few unions who are opposed to it. And strangely enough, many of them are the conservative old white unions. They've always been insular, just looking after white workers' interests. And now they can't look at themselves to take care of the interests of all South Africans, so they're just worried about their interest. But the reality is that no matter what anybody says, this is a defined benefit for the government employees' pension fund. So no public service worker who retires will get any less money that he's entitled to, because that money is guaranteed. If there's a shortfall because of any other money, the state must make up that. And the state must make that up through taxpayers. So all the other workers in Cosatu are happy to take the responsibility, should there be a problem, to through their taxes contribute to making sure they address the problems in PIC and in Eskom. But this is the moment when we need a realistic plan that's actionable tomorrow, not the kind of oppositional stuff that we see from many people with no alternatives to address the problem. If we don't solve Eskom, the credit ratings are going to downgrade us, and we're going to have a big economic crisis that's going to leave more people unemployed and more problems in South Africa.
Tony, many South Africans have cried foul over the state of corruption in South Africa. They've said that a lot of these state-owned entities, perhaps it is now an opportunity for them to be privatized. But Cosatu doesn't agree on this. Why?
Privatization is not the answer. Eskom has to play a developmental role. How we were able to, from 1994 to now, implement a system that brought another 15 million households onto the grid. Apartheid only looked after white workers in a small section of the rest of South Africa. So that important development role must be played. No privatized entity can do that. We've already seen the independent power producers are getting more than double the price of what solar photovoltaic energy cost at the moment. So that can't be appropriate. They want to operate in the free market. When prices drop, they must drop. And that's why we've said all of the IPP contracts must be reviewed. All of the coal supply contracts must be reviewed. Because what we know is that a lot of the old suppliers, big white firms, as well as the new BE suppliers, are making fortunes out of overcharging for Eskom. And that's leading to the death crisis that Eskom's in. We're not going to tolerate that. We want to see people going to jail. And that's why, as Cosatu, we want a worker on the board of the PIC, because we want to stop pussyfooting around. The scalums in South Africa must go to jail, both those in the state-owned enterprises, those in government departments, ministers and others where they found they must go to jail, but also the private sectors. Those guilty for the Steinhoff complete waste and loss of that 200 billion rand must go to jail. We must build a culture in the society where we hold everybody accountable and we send them to jail for corruption. We need to fix the country, we need to fix the economy, and we need to create jobs for all of our people. This is a plan that starts to do that.
Just lastly, on that particular subject, because many people say that people are not held accountable when the state is being looted. How do you then ensure that this 250 billion rand that the PIC might invest into Eskom is not part of corruption?
Cosatu's rescue plan is to make sure that every cent is properly accounted for, that the money is properly spent, that the turnaround strategy for Eskom is proper. But we can understand the skepticism. I think that as Cosatu, we should have gone out to every corner of the country to speak to all of our members. Many of them have been spoken to, they understand and support the proposal, but there's some who have not got the message. That's why we want to make it emphatic and absolutely clear. No public service will lose any of his retirement benefits. That is guaranteed because it's a defined benefit fund. What we want to do is fix the economy, is deal with the corrupt and make sure we create jobs for our people. Because we can be insular. We can, as workers, only be looking at ourselves, which some people is doing, and then we'll have to support our unemployed brothers and sisters and children who are never going to get jobs in a declining economy. We want to see the economy growing, at creating employment opportunities for everybody, and at removing that black tax from workers. We essentially have to support all of the unemployed people. So this is a move in the direction. It's a first step. It doesn't deal with all of the problems, but we believe it takes us a long way in the right direction, and we've got to also implement the other measures. This looks at saving retail jobs, creating more manufacturing jobs, making sure the public and service sectors are decently paid, and making sure that the economy is on a footing, that we expand into Africa and we create opportunities across the entire continent.
Thank you, Tony. Well, Tulas, there we have it. Basically, Cosatu also saying to us that there's three options really for them to approach the situation. Either leave it alone and not approach the PIC to help in this rescue plan, and then all of a sudden you'll see that Eskom will collapse, and subsequently not only 44,000 people's jobs are lost, but nearly 12 million workers are affected. Or the other option would be for Cosatu and other unions to ask for money outside of South African borders to assist Eskom, or unless the same plan that they are talking about, the rescue plan, that is the one that they're really confident about, that could help the ailing state-owned entity to be revived.
Yeah, and Tony Ehrenreich, they're not pulling any punches there, Ronald. I think it's the most emphatic I've heard by way of a Cosatu leader expressing their support for this particular proposal. Ronald Masinda, live for us there in Cape Town.